All right, sports fans, it's time for another edition of the Sports Couch, a look at area sports through the eyes of a local athlete, coach, or superfan. The Sports Couch is made possible by People's National Bank, a full-service bank with multiple locations throughout Southern Illinois to serve you. People's National Bank, member FDIC, and an equal housing lender. And made possible by Mount Vernon Title Company, your real estate closing professionals. When you need real estate closings, title searches, contract for deed, or any other legal real estate document, depend upon Mount Vernon Title Company. Who will be on the couch this morning? Let's find out. Well, here we are. It's week one of the high school football season, and it's go time. And the Mount Vernon Rams will be hitting the road each of the first 3 weeks of the season, as a matter of fact. And they'll start off on the road at Waterloo against a Waterloo team that I think went 9-2 last year, a very good playoff team. And Rams, of course, took a little bit of a step back last year. They were 3-6 overall after being in the playoffs for 2 straight years prior to that. Coach Dan Mings of the Rams joins us to talk about it. And Coach Mings, the other night you had the week 0 scrimmage here in Mount Vernon against a good Murphysboro football team, and I thought there was a lot of positive things to take out of that scrimmage the other night. One thing for sure, the Rams have got speed.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it, and we know that we're blessed with athleticism, but it comes down to, like it always does every year, the line of scrimmage, being able to control the line of scrimmage and do the things that we want to do there, and I felt like that we had a pretty good showing of doing that, on our week 0. But now everything's for real. Now everything counts. Up to this point, we've had a good summer with our scrimmages and those types of things. But now it comes down to this matters. The wins or the losses are real this time. So we're cautiously optimistic, but a lot of things are going to have to go well. We're just got to stay healthy and execute. If not, we'll get executed.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. And you made 2 really good points there. You said health and execution. And last year, health was a problem. You had a lot of key injuries to key people last year. And then, as you mentioned, the offensive line didn't always execute as well as they could have maybe or should have last year. But this year, it seems like the offensive line is ahead of perhaps where they were at this time last year.
Well, I think they're focused in, and last year we lost 3 games by 11 points, and then we go out to Ohio and versus a top 100 team in the country, we did okay. We ended up getting shellacked, but for the first 3 quarters we played, really pretty well. So, taking all those things into consideration, last year was a sort of a learning curve for the kids that are grown up now, and we know that, we can't lose games by 3 points and 4 points and 6 points. And, those are games that we're going to have to win. And hopefully, those lessons learned and the work that they put in the offseason in the summer are going to pay off for us, this season, which that's the whole goal. Everything's a learning experience, and right now I think they've taken those lessons to heart.
Well, last year you played a lot of guys that were sophomores last year that this year are juniors.
Well, and you got to realize I've played the last 2 years. I played freshmen and sophomores in our varsity schedule. We've been starting freshmen for the last 2 years, trying to get to this point, and again, hopefully it's paid off, but we've done that, and we've taken some, we went to the playoffs starting, 4 or 5 freshmen, and I think that game versus Highland that we were in the playoffs, I think that we had like 7 freshmen on the field at one point, so, it's going to be okay. I think that maybe they're growing up right now and they're learning how to play the game a little bit better and not just rely on athleticism. And, we're going to see what happens. We're going to try to be disciplined and dynamic, on the offensive side of the ball. And then we have got to be, on the defensive side, we've got to be assignment-oriented and we have to attack. So those are the two things on both sides of the ball that we just have to do. And if we want to be successful, then we'll do those.
Yeah, we talked a lot about the offense already. Let's focus more in on the defense. Yeah, reading those keys it certainly is so important on defense.
Well, it is, and that's what we've been working on. Just fine-tuning the fundamentals, becoming better at your first step. What do you do next after your first step? But on defense, it's sort of the 3 A's. We got to align. We have to have the right assignment, and we have to attack. So that's what we've been talking about on the defensive side of the ball. If you don't get lined up properly, you're giving somebody an advantage right off the bat just by misalignment. And then you got to know your assignment. You got to know what to do when the ball is snapped, and then you got to get there angry. You really got to attack, and you got to get there angry on the defensive side of the ball. And I think that we're going to get better and better and better defensively as the year goes on. Not that we're not at a good starting point right now, because we are, but we're in no means a finished product on the defensive side.
Well, there was a few times the other night in the 0-week scrimmage against Murphysboro that I noticed we just didn't wrap guys up. We were there, we were in position, but we didn't finish the job and wrap them up.
Correct. And we've been, I bought all kinds of apparatus and stuff that we've been working on tackling this year. And believe it or not, the tackling this year was better than it was last year at this point. So, but you're right. I mean, that's going to be the key. You've got to make sure that you get the guy with the ball on the ground, and it's hard to run when your feet aren't touching the ground, so you got to get his feet off the ground a little bit and hopefully, again, I keep saying hopefully a lot, but, I think that we're in a position right now that we're going to be ready when the time's called.
You got 5 home games on the schedule this year, but the first one isn't until week 4.
Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah. So, we start off the first 3 weeks on the road, and then we come home, and it's a pretty solid schedule. Altop's coming off a state title,
right,
and setting many state records. When they did it, Tolono is going to come down, and they've got the best, I think, the top-rated quarterback in the state of Illinois right now, as a senior up there, and so they're going to be a handful. We've got, Cahokia, who's always tough. Marion's going to be the class of the field because they're a year ahead of us. So they've started like 17 sophomores 2 years ago. Last year they took their learning and got better and better as the year went on, and now those 17 kids are seniors. So they're expecting a lot of things out of their senior class. So, I think that's sort of where it stacks up. We don't know anything about Carbondale. We haven't heard anything. We haven't seen them. We haven't, no scuttlebutt. So who knows what's going to go on down there because we don't. And then Centralia, I think, is a really, really solid football program right now. So we're going to no off weeks. There's definitely no off weeks on our schedule. Yeah.
You mentioned Tolono Unity. They'll be coming to Kennon Stadium on week 9, so no trips to Ohio this year.
No, not this year, or Chicago, so we're pretty lucky, but I mean, I don't think those days for the Rams are over. I think before it's all said and done, we'll be traveling. Next year we go to Champaign, up to play Tolono, but Champaign would be a short trip for what we're used to, so we don't really care about where we go or who we play, just as long as we, get those 9 in that we get a chance to play, so.
Yeah. Well, and this will probably be the last year that the Rams play Centralia in football, more than likely, since they're leaving the conference.
Well, God willing.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that way.
That was their choice that they made. So, I mean, that's something that now everybody else is going to have to make choices whether they're going to play them or not. And, of course, that's not up to me. That's up to the athletic directors. So, if they keep them on our schedule, we'll play them. If not, no big deal. We just move on.
And then Highland is coming into the league next year, and Highland's very formidable in football.
Highland's very good.
Yes.
And that's going to just make our competition level even higher. It's we're upgrading.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. Year in, year out. It's the trade-offs that we're going to have. We're trading up. We're not trying to trade down. We're not trying to find the weakest opponent we can find. And for them to come into our conference, I think is going to make us football-wise a really good conference.
Well, Highland's got a pretty good former dude who's playing tight end for the Detroit Lions, so that's not bad.
Yeah, Laporte, he's a stud, and they've over in that area. They've had quite a few pro players come out, but right now he's in the top of the conversations. With the best tight ends in the NFL. So they've done things right over there, and they're going to continue to do things right. So we're just hoping that we can get to that point.
Looking at week 1 here, Waterloo, obviously 9-2 last year, had a very good year. They do a great job over there. They were 4A, but still, I mean, they were 9-2. I mean, and they always give the Rams a heck of a football game. What do you look for in week 1?
Well, I think Cahokia beat them in the second round.
Okay.
It's what we're going to get. They're going to be tireless. They are tireless. They're going to be bigger than us. They're going to be a little bit stronger than us. And the trade-off is we're going to be a little bit faster than them. We're going to be a little bit more dynamic than they are. But if they decide to line up and punch you in the mouth, you've got to be able to get off the mat and punch back. That's what it comes down to. And last year, we were leading at halftime, and they decided to come out and a double tight full house and just punch us in the mouth, and we didn't get off the mat. So they came back and beat us in the fourth quarter. They returned, several key players. Both the running backs come back. They're going to be what we think they are. They're going to be hard-nosed and tough and just nasty type football. And we're going to try to match that toughness, and then we're going to try to throw some different things at them.
You mentioned earlier in the interview the word emotion. Football is such an emotional game, and you have to play with emotion. And we're sitting here as you start this 2025 year. This happens to be the 20-year anniversary of your 2005 team that went 11-0 before they lost deep in the playoffs. But that was a team that played with a ton of emotion.
It is, and I didn't even realize it. But, it's
20 years.
My gosh,
that's unreal, isn't it?
To me, it is. That's gone pretty fast.
Yeah.
That was a special group because the brotherhood that they had, and you say that word a lot, brotherhood in sports, but they literally grew up together. They played every sport together. All of them played together, and when they just came, for that 2005 season, they were gelled and they were ready to go. And it was an incredibly special group. We would like to, do something to make those guys a little bit jealous. They hold the, all the yardage records and the scoring records and all that kind of stuff, so we would like to make them a little bit jealous with this team if we could. But it's we've had some good times here over the last couple decades. There's been some down times here at the Vern, but there's been some good times, and that was one that we'll hold on to and we'll remember for a very long time.
If you could somehow carbon copy the emotion that team played with in 05 and have that 25 team play that way, wow.
Yeah, and literally before you got here, we were talking to them about that. Hey, just love each other and enjoy each other and celebrate each other's successes and, have fun. We can be as good as we want to be, but have fun doing it, and enjoy it. We're listening to them down here in the practice field behind us, and they're hooping and hollering, and they're getting after it a little bit. And so I think we're maybe headed that direction, as we go. But, as they gel and they come together as that one tight unit, let's just see where this thing ends up.
Yeah. Coach, as always, we appreciate the weekly visit, and best of luck as you travel to Waterloo in week 1.
All right. Thanks, Randy.